when I started out, I would just learn solos and songs and stuff of my favorite guitarists, and I spent a lot of time trying to get like I guess to a headspace where I can really like bring their music through me.
Hey Morgan, how are you doing?
Hey Dean, how's it going? Good.
Good. Now, whereabouts you situated right now?
I'm living in Leipzig, Germany, but
Okay.
I'm originally from Toronto, Canada.
How did you end up in Germany?
Essentially, I studied dance actually in high school at the Etobicoke School of the Arts. It's not the most well-known school, but it's an arts, public arts school in Etobicoke, which is like just on the outskirts of Toronto. And from there, I went straight to Rotterdam, Holland for university. So I don't know, I guess it's been 15 years I've been living in Europe. I guess the reason I'm in Leipzig now is because my wife is from here. So we met working in the same company, in the same theater in Austria. And we've been living here for a few years now, 8 years. So it's getting on. And we have a daughter. So
Oh, wonderful.
fun.
Yeah. How are you enjoying living in Europe as opposed to Canada?
There's so many different places in Europe, and I've lived in a few different places: Barcelona, Linz, Austria, Munich, Germany, Rotterdam. So, like, I think between those places, there's also a lot of cultural differences. So, I don't know. Compared to Canada, I mean, Toronto's a busy place. I liked growing up there. Obviously, it was a very nice city. I still go back very often. My parents and my sister are there and stuff. So, I could summarize it with like the reason why I also came to Europe. I think there's just a lot of arts and culture here, and it's quite well supported. Like even in terms of this album, actually that I'm doing now, I'm supported by the German government actually. So I get a lot of arts funding, and of course there is arts funding in Canada as well. But I think just at the time I came, especially, it seemed like a kind of booming time.
Just in general, the entire culture in Europe seems to really value music quite a bit.
Music, I think like a big staple in Germany is the opera houses. Like in every small town, there's an opera house, and you have tons of artists. You know, you'll have like hundreds of artists employed there. So you'll have dancers, you'll have opera singers, you'll have musicians, obviously in the orchestra. And I think it's just something that like is part of the culture. So like as a school, I mean, I remember going to see the Nutcracker or something when I was a kid. You know, like they brought us for that, but I think they just have a kind of infrastructure that supports music, definitely. And also for metal, it's a huge metal scene here, so they must be doing something right. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to some of your tracks. We'll get to that. Your new album coming out very soon. You've got 3 videos I think you've released now.
Yep. Yeah.
And
fourth one coming next week. It's,
excellent.
Keep them going. Keep coming.
Yeah, excellent. And actually, my channel is called Prog Dog, and it's focused a lot on prog rock bands, but not really so much solo guitarists. I think I need to move a little more in that direction and focus a little on that, because I think that's really an important area of music where your instrumental guitarists are composing entire albums with the guitar is basically the star. You know, that's your main voice. Like your solo songs, when I was listening to some of them, I could almost imagine an opera singer kind of coming in there.
Great to hear.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a connection there. There's a bit of intertwining going on.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it comes down to the kind of eclectic background. Like I kind of like a lot of different genres of music, and growing up in Toronto, I had a lot of different influences culturally, as well as just, you know, whatever the more normal popular stuff or hip hop, whatever. But obviously, I think working in the theater and seeing how orchestras run and like I also had a pretty awesome soloist on one of my songs, a cellist.
Oh yeah,
the only guest on my album. He's like the soloist for the Dresden Opera, which is like one of the best orchestras in the world. So I'm super happy to have him on. But it's just interesting.
I'm curious, how did you get him in your video? I'd like to know. What's the story there?
I met him. I was a guest in a soccer tournament, a football, you know, European football. A soccer tournament for musicians only, and the team that we were playing on needed like extras or something, and actually my brother-in-law is a classical clarinetist as well, and he's playing in Dresden in a different orchestra, and so he invited me, and I just met Friedrich there. I guess you would say Friedrich or something like that in English, but anyways, and we just bonded. You know, he's similar age. and we also both play the same video games. So, ironically, we've mainly bonded over playing games. But it's a few years ago now, so we're just good friends, and he just kind of agreed to take a shot at playing in this different style of music. Obviously, for classical musicians, they generally are very focused on the performance aspect, right? So they don't really improvise very much. They're not writing very much music themselves. So it was really interesting to work with him. Like I gave him a lot of space, and I saw, like, if he wanted to try and do his own thing. And then he, at some point, he just told me, like, I think it would be easier if you kind of like help me compose it. So we actually worked on it together. I sent him like a guitar solo, like a kind of rough idea. And I was like, oh, maybe you can do a fast ascending lick here, more melodic slow part, like it was still written out, like, but he took some liberties, obviously. And the translation of the instruments is quite different as well. But like, the stuff he can do on cello is pretty insane. So I didn't hold back or something.
I think that's an amazing coincidence that you happen to meet him, and then he ends up playing in your album and starring in your video as well.
Yeah,
excellent video.
Yeah, it was great. We went to his house. Actually, it was like super convenient. We're just like, man, we don't have any characters, but we're coming to film you play cello. We might as well. You work with what you got. This is an independent release. I did get some help, like, from the government, like I was saying here. But it is essentially independent. So I'm coming up with the ideas myself. And
right. Now you seem to be sort of well promoted. Do you hire PR agencies then?
For PR, I'm working with the Medalist PR, and he's a great guy based out of Italy. Check him out. He's he's doing some work for some local bands in Germany, Italy, stuff like that. And I'm also working with for digital marketing. I'm working with Hold Tight. So they're kind of a bit more well known in the gent kind of progressive metal scene. So they're working with also labels and stuff like that, and they're doing a really good job with the ads right now. So I'm pretty happy with how that's going. It's just awesome that I can actually work with these people. Well, before this solo project, I've had a little bit of a social media presence, and I've done some guitar competitions in the past. It's a while. It's going on like 8 years since the last one or something, but at the time it was maybe the golden era of guitar competitions, like Guitar Idol. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No,
there are quite a lot of amazing prog guitarists coming out of that one. Like Andre Nieri, for example, he played with Virgil Donati, Luca Montevanelli. Anyways, a lot of guitarists.
Right. You're calling this a solo album. Is that because this is kind of a project, or are you still involved with another group?
I have a band, actually. It's we're based in the UK. It's called Bloodshot Dawn, and it's more of like a melodic, technical death metal, more leaning towards the melodic side, but definitely also progressive. I mean, it's hard to come up with like all the superlatives that metal genres tend to have. It's not that dissimilar to my music. I would say it's like, I guess, instead of like the chorus melodies being vocally sung, like in my songs, we use a guitar for the vocal melodies kind of concepts, and then all of the vocals are harsh vocals, screaming or growling, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I mean, I would encourage you guys to check that out. If you do like my music, it's definitely up there. And we are a band. We have some pretty cool musicians. Our drummer is also playing with the band Decapitated, quite a well-known Polish death metal band. So, I mean, I do have a band, and I've been releasing music with them. We have a new album coming out as well sometime soon. We managed to finish that during Corona, like during COVID time. So, but yeah, no. So this solo project, I guess I call it a solo project because I've essentially done everything. I've written the drums, I've programmed instruments, I've played the synth. You can see a couple keys over here. I do a lot of synth writing. I produced it, I mixed it. I didn't actually master it. I got a Canadian guy to help me out with that. Alan Sasha Lasco, great studio guy and great guitarist as well. He helped me master it. But other than that, I do have a help from a drummer friend of mine as well, to just kind of make it a little bit more realistic, because I think programming drums from a guitarist perspective, although I've been doing it for a very long time, I guess going on like 12 years of programming drums,
Hmm.
you still tend to imagine a drummer with like, you know, the Shiva arms, just like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Especially with the technical metal stuff. Bit crazy territory in that regard. So I don't know. I'm actually, what I did with him, it's also interesting. You know, he's, you know, we've been jamming a lot together over the years. But he didn't have any part in the writing of the music per se, right? So what we would do is I would just bring him the track without the drums, and I would just let him jam over the tracks.
Right.
And the flexibility, I mean, this is a cool thing about solo guitarist music is, you know, you don't have any boundaries in terms of like how you record. I don't need to record in a studio. You know, I'm doing everything in the box in terms of the MIDI. I have a home studio here. Unfortunately, you can't see it from this angle, but it looks kind of cool. Um, but yeah. So essentially, like with him, we recorded him playing over the parts, and then, you know, if he's doing something I like, I would tell him to, you know, try and get it a bit tighter or something like that. Obviously, editing afterwards is still possible. I don't know if you know what MIDI is. It's, you know, this information where you see, it's essentially velocity over time, and as well the notes. And in a drum kit, you know, it's like you know, E4 will signify a certain symbol, and you can, you know, program it like that. And so what we do, though, we record him playing the kit, so it is actually played, and it just sounds like already well produced drums essentially out of the box. And what we did, yeah, so I kind of merged his takes into my takes. Essentially, what I really needed from him mainly was realistic fills, because I find like writing out fills, it's very mechanical. You end up doing that, and that's just, I don't want to hear a whole album of that. So I had him do a lot of crazy stuff in that way. And he's also a very good prog drummer. He's a lot into the shifting time signatures, and just kind of giving different time feels to sections. So if you're listening to my album, you'll notice sometimes it's like, oh, I've heard this riff before, but it feels different because the drums are dividing the time in a different way, and it gives it like another element. So I'm into writing that kind of stuff myself, but like the way he does it naturally, from his interpretation, is just like really great. So yeah, I would call it a solo project, but he's definitely helping me a lot to make it sound like, you know, a band affair, let's say.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's going to enrich the whole project to have him involved then.
For sure. He'll be in one of the videos as well, so I can't leave him totally in the dark.
That's a cool idea. So speaking of the videos, how do you approach making your videos?
It starts off with the song. You have the song. It sounds good already, and essentially you want to have something visually interesting to go along with it. That's the most basic interpretation. After that, I think I'm also a dancer and a choreographer. I've spent a lot of time with like narrative and trying to build, kind of like conceptual work around, I guess, the body mainly, but like it's always music and dance together. You know, it's very hard for me to separate those things. So I tend to try. I mean, I've tried to use that experience that I have in that world. It doesn't always translate that well to video, but you know, every circumstance is different. So for the first video, for example, you know, I just went out with this video guy who I'm working with in Leipzig. Pretty awesome. And I just noticed, you know, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's got great camera movement. I just have to perform, you know, like how I would. I like to bring movement to the instrument. And obviously, you know, in metal, we have a lot of tradition of like headbanging and windmilling and like all those things. And I really resonate with that. That's like what I do when I'm playing live or something. So I just got to perform, kind of be myself, obviously focus on playing the song as closely as I can to the original so that it, you know, it lines up in that sense. But obviously you can tell it's a studio recorded song, and my guitar isn't even plugged in, but I've only had one person mention that so far. It's like, you know, it's a music video. It's not a playthrough. If you want to see me play guitar, you got plenty of that content around.
I think it captures something. I mean, the guitar parts is very fresh in your mind. I mean, if you were going to do the video in 2 years from now, it'd be completely different. You're still very connected with your experience in the studio, at your home studio, I'm sure. So I think it comes across, and I don't see that as a hindrance. I mean, I think there's just two kinds of videos. You know, there's videos with the pre-recorded and you're kind of miming along, but miming, I don't know, it still
I'm
has a lot
definitely
of
playing the
character.
parts. I'm definitely playing the parts. And I think, I mean, it's always been something in my DNA as a guitarist. Like, I've been somebody who, because I had this other work, I didn't I didn't study music or something, right? So I came from it from like a hobby standpoint, and when I started out, I would just learn solos and songs and stuff of my favorite guitarists, and I spent a lot of time trying to get like, I guess, to a headspace where I can really like bring their music through me. And it's like I kind of had that same experience when I'm playing to my own songs. Like, of course it's my songs, but it's like, okay, I need to try and like nail this part that's happening on a recording along with it, you know. So I think that training has actually helped me a lot for the videos, right? Like, not to say, I don't know, it's difficult because when I'm also writing the music, I do a lot of improvisation. I have to say, I like to improvise, especially on the lead side of things, because the songs are so structured. I try and bring, you know, an element of catchiness to the songs, but I want to keep it like fresh. So when I'm playing, I like to channel the kind of expression through the instrument, and that comes out through the solos mainly. So maybe I'll have some kind of like really frantic, they both work. Kind of lines going, and yeah, obviously like trying to play those again can be very challenging, and maybe if I were playing in a live circumstance, I would, you know, obviously I'm not playing with a backing track, so I can have those little nuances and timing. I can have a little bit of improvisation between lines. I'm able to play my songs is what I'm trying to say, but if I were playing them live, maybe I would do it slightly different. But
so what percentage of a song, for example, is you wouldn't want to fool around with it? Maybe it's the main melodic hook or whatever, and what's the percentage that you leave room for yourself to just do whatever every different night?
That's interesting. I've with my band, for example, I actually tend to try and play the solos note for note, because I know that people are expecting that and they like want to hear that original version, and I give like I don't know, I give it like the space it needs. Like I think it. And it's also challenging for me. It's probably more challenging if I were just to improvise things. First of all, it probably wouldn't sound as good. I'm not saying I'm a bad improviser. Like, I'm okay. Like, you know, I'm not a jazz guy per se. But I think it just does, like, the songs deserve to be played well. And yeah. But okay, so percentage wise, if I were playing my own stuff, I think I would probably pick a couple songs where the solo sections are a little bit more open and free, maybe like a simpler chord progression, because I think it's more fun to kind of jam over that style of backing track, let's say, in this circumstance, although it's obviously just music. Sorry, backing track is a difficult term these days, because some people just actually actually mime along to their tracks live.
Right.
I will not be doing that.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't. No.
But yeah. I think it'd be cool. It'd be cool, like, maybe to find a couple songs where I could just fully improvise the solo section, let's say. I think otherwise the riffs are also very particular, very orchestrated. So it would be nice to like bring that energy to a live circumstance. I think that's something where live music and recording, you know, just hearing something live can be so amazing, and it's just a different experience. So I would really like to play this music live, actually, because, you know, playing it in these videos and stuff, it just feels really natural. You know, it's my stuff. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not writing these things mechanically, right? I'm not going into these Guitar Pro type softwares and clicking things in. You know, a lot of this material has really come from the instrument first. Like I'm almost always just writing a riff to a metronome and then writing a drum part or something afterwards. Sometimes for the choruses, like for the chord progressions, I'll be a little bit more mindful. Okay, like I want to try and simplify this. You know, I want to have a bit more of a chord progression type section, you know, so you can follow it and it's a bit more catchy, let's say. But a lot of the riffing and stuff like that is just coming from that kind of developed improvisation, which is what composition is. So I would love to improvise live. I would love to do it for sure. It wouldn't be too much, maybe 20% at most of the solos.
Well, that would be so cool if you could do you know, even a little mini tour or something with the band and play your solo album. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I think I could probably get some guys together.
Well,
found out about Philip Glass. I don't know if you know him. He's
love Philip Glass.
I mean, I had played some instruments as a kid, but it wasn't like my thing. But I heard his piano songs and I was like, man, I want to learn this.
I was thinking, you know, maybe somewhere down the road, if I had the means, I would organize a guitarist festival where it's guitarists like yourself who are solo guitarists, have a whole bunch of you, because it seems there's a lot. Well, there's a few out there I'm just discovering now. You're one of them, and becoming aware of this. So this sort of, I don't know if it's a movement or if it's.
It's hard to say. It's a historical thing. I mean, like kind of Shrapnel Records, the shred scene from the late '80s. You know, that's kind of the foundation, I guess, of the style. Like, although it's you know, it's gone through layers upon layers of, you know, different genres, and maybe in terms of his genre, my music is maybe a little bit closer to kind of like, yeah, progressive metal, gent, shred, even like elements of death metal and stuff like that, right? So it's difficult to say where it's exactly come from, but I think there's always been a tradition of like guitarists, you know, like, who am I thinking of? Like Marty Friedman, Jason Becker, Paul Gilbert, Buckethead, you know, like those are kind of guys that I've really also really enjoyed listening to their music. You always hear those guitarists being like, I never listen to guitar music. It's like, no, I love guitar music. I listen to it all the time. So I could give you, I could list them out for you. There's quite a tradition there. The people that I have in my head as being like, oh, my favorite guitarists, they're guitarists of bands, right? They're in bands. They're you know, mainly touring, like Per Nilsson or something. Amazing guitarist. He has his band, you know, Scar Symmetry, and he's played with Meshuggah. But like, I see him also as a kind of solo artist. He hasn't even released a solo album. But like, I see him playing guitar all the time as by himself, improvising things or clips. It's like a different way of digesting music also. So I think it depends. Like, do you want to listen to music in an album format? Do you want to, you know what I mean? Like, these are questions you have to ask yourself today, right? Like, for at least I think obviously I'm still in a generation, I love to listen to albums, and I like to see people's vision, but I think I also just generally have a little bit more patience maybe than you know, some people my age. We're probably only looking at TikTok and it's like, okay, I got 10 seconds of this guy, that was cool, maybe 15 seconds of this chick, you know. Right. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So I struggle with the concept of just calling myself a band, you know, just giving myself a band name, because at the end of the day, you know, what's the difference? Is, you know, I also, like, for example, I don't know if you know Intervals, the Canadian band. They're also very guitar. Yeah, you should, because they're massive. I mean, they're massive. Their music is great. It's melodic. It's also gone through a lot of evolution from like a bit more heavier music to a little bit more accessible stuff recently. And it's essentially just one guy. Actually, it's Aaron Marshall who does all the writing, and he has a band who plays with him and records for him, but it's like his project, right? So in those terms, I think also Animals as leaders, right? Like that, all those things start off as like solo projects that have a band name. And at the time, you know, like all these people, you know, we're all able to record for ourselves and produce music ourselves, luckily. I think it's a great thing. And yeah, it just I guess it just changes what the definition of band is. Is a band's group of people that play music that they all equally composed. I mean, there are very few bands that do that, I would say. I mean, I guess it's been like that since the Beatles or whatever. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
You should check out the Vancouver. I mean, they're quite a heavy band, but Archspire, they're actually a band who write all together in the same room, and that is awesome stuff. Like, it turns out really cool. I think as a result of that, they have a lot of perspective around what they're doing. So it's, I mean, they're awesome band.
Yeah, I'll be doing a react to them, actually. As a Canadian, I do a lot of reactions, and over the last 2 years, over 600 songs I've reacted to, a majority of which were progressive rock and metal. And nice. It's amazing how I just never run out of new songs to explore in a new band. So
you can thank the laptop for that. I mean,
I guess so. Yeah. I wanted to say about your dancing.
Sure.
If I were going to give you my 2 cents, I would definitely say play up that card, because I mean, you do need to stand out, because in this day and age, with the proliferation of home studios and laptop computer studios, there's so many artists now. So you really have to play your card for whatever it is that's makes you unique. And I really enjoyed the dancing aspect in the video. I think it was Gent Juice or whatever, or maybe it was the one before that. You were doing some dancing, and I thought that was awesome. I really do, because I've seen some guitarists who dance on stage like a little chicken dance or something. You know, something really wacky. They obviously aren't very talented at dancing, but if you have a talent, you should do it.
It's a big part of my expression, a big part of my life. My wife was also a dancer. It's difficult. It's all this Am I a dancer now? I don't know. I'm mainly a musician, but I still like to dance.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's actually, if you do like the dance, you should definitely watch the next video because it's mainly a dance film.
Great, great.
It's
I look forward to
three
that.
dancers this time as well, so it's a bit more choreographed and stuff. Yeah, I resorted to my improvisation abilities, and I said we essentially um, did a bunch of takes of me just dancing to the songs and kind of me getting, you know, it's still thought of. It's like, how do I want to interpret the music and stuff, right? Like, obviously I have a lot of experience, so it's possible for me to improvise. But for this next song, it's called Goliath Online. It's quite a heavy song, and it's just very interesting how the dancing, it's a bit more choreographed. It's me and two women dancing together, and yeah, it's
Not
just
your
like
wife?
seeing how that yes,
Your
my
wife?
wife as well.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah,
My wife, yes, it's
yeah,
nice to feature her. um
yeah.
we work together all the time. We choreograph things together, so it's you know, she's a big part of what I can do and how I can do it. And even the fact, you know, I have a 1-year-old kid and I'm out here, you know, doing an interview somehow and managing to release an album. I'm pretty thankful to her. Thank you, Tina, wherever you are. She's yeah, so it's definitely I think it's interesting. I like it. It's contemporary dance, you know, it's a kind of modern dance style.
Yeah.
It's up to date. Don't worry.
Right, right. Well, I wouldn't know, but it looks pretty cool. That's just my
Thank you.
offerings. I just want to know if you can condense your life into a story. What's your story? I mean, did you grow up and say, "Oh, one day I want to be on stage playing guitar," or did you are you just driven to be creative? You don't want to have a normal day job. But what's your story? How can
That is interesting. I've over the past, I have to just before I have to give it a little bit of pretense. I've had some very long conversations about this topic. Obviously, if I can condense it as short as possible, I guess parents, both artists, very much grew up in a very creative household. My sister is also an artist and a singer and a visual artist, bit more on the visual side. I was a bit more on the dance and movement side. I grew up, although not too interested in art, I have to say. I was more like into ninjas. You know, I was really into karate. I was with 12, I was already a black belt in karate and stuff. Like I was very much into that kind of movement. And that definitely influenced me. And one day my parents were like, you know, you should try out some dancing stuff. And I had been going to school in downtown Toronto where hip hop was very in, and I was very influenced by that. I actually started doing more dance in kind of hip hop scenario, you know, just like kind of in the back, you know, the schoolyard or whatever, dancing to some music, hip hop style. And then, yeah, I got that kind of the karate and that. And then my parents were like, you should do, you know, high art, whatever that is. So I started doing some classes, and I ended up just going to this Etobicoke School of the Arts, which is an amazing place. It had all kinds of different art things. Think, you know, you had musical theater, orchestra, drama, you know, dance, like all those kind of. It was like a university, but like in a high school type thing. So that you know, that opened up my mind like this. Trying to summarize everything in like one sentences. My you know, my parents being artists, my mother was an actress, my father was a sculptor and a painter. You know, he listened to a lot of jazz. I grew up listening to Keith Jarrett. I found out about Philip Glass. I don't know if you know him. He's a
Oh, love Philip Glass.
amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
he's actually the reason I got. I mean, I had played some instruments as a kid, but it wasn't like my thing. You know, I just had fun. Okay, I had to practice. I didn't like practicing. But I heard his piano songs and I was like, man, I want to learn this. So I just went to the library, the Toronto Public Library. They have you know, they have his sheet music. You know,
Oh,
it's
nice.
before you could find it on the internet. Sorry, I'm out of focus
Yeah.
randomly. And yeah, so I learned his songs, and I was just motivated to do it. And I realized, oh, I can do this stuff myself. Like I can practice myself. So oh man, this is not going to be short at all. But I'm summarizing it in bullet points. Okay. Have you heard of the game Guitar Hero?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
I was a little bit too good at that game. I was very good at it, and that did show me, okay, it's like, okay, I could, you know, I could probably play real guitar. And my friends were like, man, why are you wasting your time on this like expert level when you could just play real guitar? And luckily when I moved to Europe, I was a little bit lonely, you know. I moved like halfway around the world for my family, and I had a guitar with me, so I spent a lot of time practicing. Yeah, so that's a summary of my early days. Obviously, I would like also to thank the internet. Thank you. Thank you, whoever invented the internet. I can't remember your name, but it opened up a lot of just like you could find whatever you wanted to. You could go down these rabbit holes, and I found like such small sections of the internet. These shred guys, Rusty Cooley, Buckethead, Paul Gilbert, and they had a lot of stuff to help you learn how to play. And I essentially got my technical foundation from watching videos of these guys.
So you never had an actual guitar lesson with a teacher?
Years later, I did. A couple years after starting, I had lessons from Chris Story, who's also kind of legendary guitarist in the death metal scene, or deathcore specifically. He played for a band called All Shall Perish, and he is known for being extremely technical. Like he does a lot of four note per string stuff with extra taps, so it looks like this. Very, very fast, and that really I don't know, that just grabbed me. Like that kind of high intensity, full concentration. I think it reminded me of a lot of the things I've experienced doing like martial arts and stuff, like really needing to be in the moment and focus on the music. And I can bring up some quotes, but it's like, musicians are athletes of the like minutia, I guess, or of the fingers. I can't remember the quote exactly, but that did definitely appeal to me. Being a dancer, also the kind of mind-body connection and just bringing that kind of experience to the instrument. Yeah, I don't know. I just love to sit down and just practice licks like for hours on end. It was very, very interesting being able to improve dissecting different aspects of technique. So I think, it's guitar music. It's a little bit nerdy sometimes, but
and what was your age at this when you were playing the Guitar Hero? What was that age that you were at there?
I guess I started when I was like 16, 17, something like that. I played for a year and a half before picking up the guitar again. I had played a little bit of guitar when I was 12 because I was really into Red Hot Chili Peppers as well.
So I'm really impressed with your story. I think it's fascinating how you were born into this nurturing artistic family, artists and musicians and actors, and then you got into dance and then get the minutia of guitar work and shredding and djent and stuff like that. And it's a fascinating story you have there. I think you're going to have a lot of still opportunities wide open as far as I can see. I'm quite happy that we managed to talk here on Zoom, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate your appreciation of my experience so far. So it's great to have guys like you out there, promoting, and thank you so much for the talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also very insightful. You don't get asked insightful questions all the time, I have to say. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you. And maybe we'll do this again. I wouldn't be surprised, hopefully.
Would love to. Yeah. Okay.
And all the best to your wife and your young daughter.
Yes. Thank you.
I think your daughter's got it sounds like she's going to have a wonderful childhood with two wonderful parents.
Thank you. Well, she's doing great. She's talking too much. She's like 13 months old and she knows like 300 words, and I'm just like, please stop.
Okay.
It's scary.
Okay.
It's scary. And if we're doing like trilingual stuff, very fun.
That's right. And did you learn some foreign languages over there then now?
Yeah. I learned Spanish and German since moving to Europe, and I grew up speaking French and English. So
super. Well, you're well equipped. Well, I wish you all the best, and until the next time we talk.
Thank you, Dean. Yeah.
You take care. All right.
Catch you later.